everybody, welcome to Redmen TV. My name's Dan Clubb and I'm here for your latest fan interactive show as we react to the news that Liverpool have reached a full agreement with Brighton and Hove Albion midfielder Alexis Mac Allister. Perhaps not Brighton and Hove Albion midfielder for too much longer. It looks fair to say at this point. Please get involved in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling about this deal and indeed what other deals could be in the pipeline for Liverpool, because it's been a particularly busy morning across, I guess, the city, I guess the football club, and certainly here at Redmen TV. We've already had Neil Jones come in. We've already seen many tweets from Fabrizio Romano to James Pearce to the man himself, Paul Joyce. Lots of things happening, and we're here to talk about them. But mainly, we're going to be concentrating on Alexis Mac Allister, of course. So yeah, let me know in the chat how buzzing you are, over the moon that Liverpool are making their first move for the transfer window happen. It looks like, as I'm going to go to the chat before we press on into some thoughts, opinions, and of course the all-important information that we know. Yeah, Boris kicks us off with... Boris Castaneda kicks us off with, finally, you'll never walk alone. Yeah, I get where you go. I mean, you say finally, the transfer window doesn't actually open until I think it's next Wednesday, the 14th of June, but... And the Mac Allister one, I think dragging on would be a stretch, but we have kind of known about our interest. I think Paul Joyce said sort of the conversation started back in April. We have known of our interest for a number of weeks now, and all of a sudden it looks like it very much will be happening this week. And on that, I will go to Paul Joyce first and foremost. As I say, Romano's been talking about it a lot. Lots of different people have been talking about it, but all of a sudden this morning, the man who we all turn to for our reliable Liverpool transfer information, Paul Joyce, put a report out saying Liverpool are aiming to sign Brighton's Alexis Mac Allister this week. He will become Liverpool's first signing of the summer, with the Anfield club hopeful of concluding a deal this week, as I say. So yeah, massive news for the Reds. Obviously, World Cup winner off the back of a brilliant season for Brighton, really has been flourishing in that side. And I think we're all very excited to see him in Liverpool red as well. Yeah, let's see what you guys think. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is sort of the overriding thing. I do want to get your opinion on sort of who else you'd like to see right at the end, because within the Joyce article as well, I've seen he mentions Thuram. It says Liverpool are following Kefren Thuram at Nice as well, sort of backing up reports from last week. Manu Kone's name is a name that's not going away. Ryan Gravenberch still exists. Gabby Vega is another name sort of on the horizon this morning. I know Steve and Neil Jones have spoken just before I came on air about Vega a little bit, obviously about Mac Allister too, so there's loads of midfield names being linked with the Reds just at the minute. Hip Hop Legend says, great signing, but we need two others to compete. Yeah, I think 3 is the magic number with this one in terms of what we need to go and do. I think Mac Allister obviously is sort of the attacking option, boxed off, particularly from the left-hand side, the sort of attacking left-sided 8. Still think we need a 6 cover, or at least someone who can do that job, and of course the right-sided 8. A whole new midfield, essentially, is what I'm looking for, to go alongside Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, Stefan Bajcetic, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, Thiago, and I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. But yeah, we need 3 new ones, and looks like Mac Allister will be number 1. Now, I mentioned fees there and figures just a second ago, and it's interesting that yesterday, Fabrizio Romano was videoed on his own podcast thing, I think it's fair to say, saying that it will be a bargain Liverpool pay for Alexis Mac Allister. Now, this morning, he has, of course, been on Twitter as ever, and he has said, Alexis Mac Allister to Liverpool, here we go, full agreement completed on the contract. He understands it will be valid until June 2028, so that's a 5-year deal, of course. Liverpool will pay the buyout clause in the next days, which is way less than the reported 60 million fee. Medical tests to be concluded now. They'll be happening in the next 24 to 48 hours, and he ends the tweet by saying done. As definitive as that. If a here we go wasn't enough from Fabrizio, he has said done as well. And just in terms of the fee then, I think when it was initially sort of muted that Alexis Mac Allister was the primary target, certainly after Jude Bellingham fell by the wayside, I think we were all kind of expecting sort of 65 to 70 million sort of region, because Brighton are brilliant sellers. As I said earlier, off the back of an incredible season for Brighton, World Cup winner, great age, sort of fits the age profile for what we're looking for. And I think we all thought, yeah, you're going to be paying 70 million a premium for him. If we can get him for below 60 million, let alone way below it, we'll have done some serious business. Come some more your comments then. Tech? Why do I always pick the names that are just impossible to pronounce? Tech Consource Tac. That's not a name, is it? That's more like a business. Anyway, Alexis Mac Allister is a red. Yeah, it certainly looks very much like that is going to be the case. Not just yet. We haven't seen him sort of doing the Axeline just yet, let's say, but I don't think we're too far away from that whatsoever. I think it'll be a matter of days. Somebody asked me any more info on the fee. Tom Lloyd, no, not apart from what I've just said there. So like I say, Fabrizio's saying, he said yesterday it'd be a bargain. This morning he said it'd be way less than £60 million. I mean, if we could get him for around the 50 mark, I'd be over the moon with that. I think he's a brilliant footballer. He adds much needed energy to that midfield department. His injury record was superb as well. Barely missed the game for Brighton. His career pathway is a really interesting one. It's something I've spoken to a few people about and will continue to do so now that the deal looks ever closer. I spoke to Roy Nemeth recently, an Argentinian football expert who really does know everything there is to know. And he was telling me about his pathway to stardom, I suppose, in many senses. Obviously started off at Argentinos Juniors, went to Brighton, went back to Argentina on loan to Boca, won the Argentinian First Division title there, and was fancied at the time as a star for the Argentinian national side, sort of got his debut and then got taken away a little bit, and I think he felt a little bit hard done by that. But his Brighton emergence over the past 18 months has been just astronomical, and it's no huge surprise that big clubs were going to come calling, and it looks like Liverpool, of course, have won that race. A few people are mentioning some possibilities to go alongside him. I'll bring a couple up now. Luke Edwards says Gravenberch and Thuram. Yeah, two other players heavily linked to Liverpool. The Thuram one has gained a little bit more traction, I'd say, this morning, just because of Joyce mentioning it as well. Somebody else mentions that Joyce has also mentioned Lavia. I've seen David Lynch talking about Lavia as well, just as I was coming on air. Ali A says Fabrizio and Joyce have both mentioned that. And on that note, I think I've got another tweet to bring you. I do indeed. From Fabrizio Romano this morning. He has doubled down on Alexis Mac Allister stuff, of course, and he has said, after Alexis Mac Allister with the medical book this week, Liverpool will then focus on more targets to rebuild the midfield. As I said earlier, we need three, essentially, midfielders, in my opinion. Conversations have already taken place with the agents of Manu Kone, Kefren Turam. Gabri Veiga is appreciated, but there's no bid or talks advancing just yet, step by step. Yeah, I was going to come on today and tell you all about the interest in Gabri Veiga, Kefren Turam, Manu Kone, Ryan Gravenberch, etc., because over the weekend there's been various reports from various people about all of those names, but the Alexis Mac Allister deal has, of course, taken precedent, because that is the one that feels like it's imminent, essentially. Feels like it's absolutely imminent. And like I say, for something around the 50 million mark, 5-year deal, that's very good business for Liverpool. Now, whether it's Julian Ward sort of tying up his own loose ends before he moves on to pastures new, who knows? Or whether this is George Schmadtke taking the reins and getting things done quickly, again, who knows? Whatever it is, it's good news for Liverpool Football Club, in my opinion. Like I said, player I really like, Mac Allister, very technical, but also offers a lot in terms of energy and his work rate, and Liverpool lack that badly at times this season. Got to go for some more of your comments now. Sam Pillar says he's buzzing. He's a great player and will only get better under Klopp. I think that's another important thing to raise in all of this as well, because every time I speak to anyone with any knowledge of any footballer, essentially, about players linked with Liverpool, one of the questions I always ask is, are they a Klopp player initially, and how high is the ceiling? And often it's, well, under a coach, under a manager like Jurgen Klopp, they're just going to get better and better. And Mac Allister feels like another one of those. He feels like someone who's had a brilliant career up until now, still very young, of course, and 24. His development has been, his trajectory's been upwards, I think it's fair to say. He's improved already under Roberto De Zerbi from his time under Graham Potter. You give Jurgen Klopp a player of that ability, and with that skill set, I think we're going to see him go up and up and up and up, I think it's fair to say. And it's exciting, because as much as Liverpool I've been crying out for and are desperate for midfielders, getting one of this quality is crucial as well, because no point just signing bodies for the sake of it. We need high-class performers who are going to come into the side and make an impact straight away. And I think Alexis Mac Allister might just be that. I often use the expression, he's plug and play for this football team, and I think Mac Allister probably is, because Neil Jones has spoken a lot, actually, on Journal Insights about Liverpool wanting Premier League proven players. Again, Mac Allister fits that bill. A lot of people ask him how much we're paying for Alexis Mac Allister. Somebody said here, excuse me, DD has said 70 million on him, but can't put an extra 30 million for Bellingham. But I don't think it is 70 million for Alexis Mac Allister, quite frankly. I think that's overshooting it by probably about 15, 20 million, potentially. We don't know exactly just how much that is over the top just yet, but I get where you're coming from. Don't get me wrong. Like, you could say the same if it's 50 million. You could say, why not extra 50 million for Bellingham? And I think the answer to that is because we do need a complete overhaul. Ian Russ's Mustache, which is a fantastic name, by the way, says here, he's a good signing, but we need a centre-back now. And that sort of lends itself to the point I was making about our money a second ago. All well and good spending 100 million plus wages on Jude Bellingham, who is a supremely talented footballer and somebody I wanted more than anyone, quite frankly, 2 months ago. But if that's half your budget and you could only afford one, maybe two other players after that, that wasn't enough. Like, it just wasn't enough for what we needed to do this summer. Plus, you know, who knows what he said when we missed out on the Champions League. He might not have fancied a year in the Europa League. Who knows? Plus, I think he's about to have a knee operation. So, you know, I don't wish unwell on the lad, but we might have dodged a bullet. He is held together by tape, essentially, already. For a 19-year-old kid, he's played a lot of football. Like, we've all seen the stats. He's played way over the odds of Steven Gerrard, etc., had at this age, and Wayne Rooney as well. So he could well break at some point. He could well break. Anyway, let's go again. Jared Kelly says, if we get Kone, Thuram and Mac Allister, then they is confident we can go all the way in Europa and challenge for the league minimum top four. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think going all the way in Europa shouldn't be underestimated either. I think that'd be massive if we could do that. Not only is the final in Dublin, which I think I've said on every show for the past 2 weeks, but it's a route back to the Champions League for a start. Not that I think we'll miss out on top four again, because I don't. I think if we have the summer that we're expecting and that we should be having, then there's no reason why we don't just get top four again next season. I say that as if it's easy, but under Jurgen Klopp, it has been a bit of a prerequisite and it has been taken for granted a little bit that we will be a top four side. Now, that went out the window last year because last summer was, quite frankly, hilariously bad. It was woeful, like it truly was. And we can all say that now with the benefit of hindsight, but it was awful. Like getting Artemelo, you know, no disrespect to him as a footballer, but getting him, having not played for months on end, with no fitness behind him whatsoever, and then to watch him play 14 minutes of football in Naples, it's embarrassingly bad. We need to fix that this summer. And signing Alexis Mac Allister is the perfect place to start, in my opinion, because getting that deal over the line, and again, this is something Jurgen Klopp likes to do. He likes to get his business done early. And let's be honest, we are still 9 days away from the transfer window even opening. And I'm sat here talking about the major journalists in the game, essentially saying that Alexis Mac Allister will become a Liverpool player this week. In terms of getting your business done early, I don't think we can ask for much more than that, quite frankly. Lots more people asking about the price. I'll just gloss over it quickly. Again, we're not exactly sure how much it's going to cost just yet. Romano's reported it'll be way below £60 million, and it is going to be a 5-year contract again, according to Fabrizio Romano. So yeah, let's see. Oh, here we go. Now we're talking. Right, so what have we got here? Robert Nice says, Mac Allister, Trent to midfield, right back replacement, late price match for Bellingham. I think we need to give up on the Bellingham one, quite frankly. I don't think that's going to happen. He looks very much Real Madrid bound. Almost as much Anfield bound as Mac Allister is. Bellingham looks to be Bernabeu bound, I think it's fair to say. And again, price-wise, wages-wise, etc., it's not going to happen. Give it up, everyone. And as for Trent to midfield, I don't agree with that either, quite frankly. I think the fact that he was playing sort of a hybrid right-back midfield role was the reason we were relatively successful towards the back end of the season. I don't think that'll change. We might see him midfield more often, sort of exclusively, and we might see a bit of Calvin Ramsey as a backup right-back potentially, but I think overall, I think it's going to be much of the same towards the back end of the season, but with Mac Allister as part of it and with maybe Gravenberch, Kone, Thuram, who knows, as part of it as well. Anyway, moving on. Tom Kennan says, Kone wore Liverpool kit for his trousers as a kid. Yeah, I've seen all this stuff this morning. He has spoken about Liverpool in the past, just how much he is a fan of the football club. But I have seen that Kevin De Bruyne clip as well that everyone said. And he has made a career out of tormenting Liverpool, essentially, since he's been at Manchester City. So I'm not going to get carried away by the fact that Kone appears to like Liverpool. But if it does help swing the deal our way, then I'm all for it. Because Kone, again, is another player I really like. In terms of a toss-up between him and Thuram, I'm pretty split on that, to be fair. I think size-wise, Thuram would be ideal. He's 6'4" and people just fall off him anytime they go near him. And that is a sort of physicality that we need. So he would make a lot of sense. But feel free to let me know in the chat whether you prefer Kone or Thuram. And indeed, Gravenberch or Gabby Veiga, because they're two other names that are heavily linked to follow Alexis Mac Allister to Liverpool. Oh, here we go. This is it. On that note, actually, I'll bring this up. Gray B says, Dan, if you could only sign 2 more players, would it be 2 midfielders or 1 midfielder and a centre-back? Great question. It would be 2 midfielders. And I'd keep Joel Matip at the football club, and I'd probably have to keep Nat Phillips in that case. The ideal summer for me, just to clarify, would be 2 more midfielders after Mac Allister and the centre-back. And then we'll allow probably Joel Matip to go. Definitely Nat Phillips to go in that circumstance, but probably Joel Matip as well, as long as you can rely on the new centre-back to be available a hell of a lot more. In this scenario, I would be signing 2 more midfielders and keeping all of them, i.e. Joel Matip and Nat Phillips, just because we know we can't rely on Joel Matip all the time in terms of availability. So you'd keep Nat Phillips as almost his backup. You keep Nat Phillips like the millionth time, it seems like. Just keep him around just in case anything goes wrong. Yeah, that'll be my answer. Please let me know in the chat what your answer would be to that, actually, because it's an interesting question. Hopefully that's not an issue and it's not a dilemma facing Jurgen Klopp and Jörg Schmadtke right now, because Jörg Schmadtke already appears to have delved straight into his Bundesliga WhatsApp group and is talking to Kone and Gravenberch, it appears. But yeah, like I said earlier, the Thuram links are only getting increasingly more interesting, I think it's fair to say, because he is quite clearly a player on our radar. When Paul Joyce mentions a name in an article, you know there's something to it. So let's just see what happens. Yeah, Shane McKenzie makes the point that Kylian Mbappe swerved Liverpool, and his ma was a Liverpool fan as well. Okay, yeah. Jen LFC said you'd take all of them. I assume you mean all the midfielders that we've mentioned. Yeah, we might have too many, perhaps, in that case. I've seen somebody mention earlier about Harvey Elliott not fitting into plans. Wow, Jevid, I'm going to bring that up in a second. Sorry. Yeah, somebody mentioned Harvey Elliott not fitting in. I don't agree with that. I think he most certainly has a role in the side. It might not be what we seen last season in terms of him starting essentially every game for like the first 6 months. But when games get stretched and spaces start to appear, there are few players in our squad right now that I'd rather see come on than Harvey Elliott. And I think the attacking right-sided 8 role actually suits him really well, providing there's space to go and do it. I think he has problems when it's really congested in there and he's required to run back all the time. I don't think that necessarily suits his game. He is very willing to do it, but it doesn't suit him. But if we have a front line midfield and then the likes of Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones behind it, I'm absolutely fine with that. There's no point sort of casting off these players and selling them when our main issue this season was sort of a lack of numbers in there, a lack of available numbers anyway. And barring that horrific ankle injury, Harvey Elliott's availability has actually been really good for us. So I wouldn't be getting rid of him just now whatsoever. There's a different conversation around Fabio Carvalho. That's not for now in terms of our options. But yeah, I think Harvey Elliott definitely has a role to play moving forwards. Vase of Flowers, which is a very poetic name, says Thuram doesn't play DCM. I presume you mean defensive central midfielder. I do it the other way around, CDM, or number 6 for that matter. He does, and he can. He very much can, in fact. He has played slightly more advanced for Nice in recent times, but he very much can play as a central defensive midfielder. And I think having a player who can do both, find yourself one that can do both, would actually be really important, because we're going to be mixing up the formation quite a little bit as well, I think it's fair to say, with our many attacking options. I think we will see that 4 double pivot 4 essentially at times as well. Excuse me. So having someone like Thuram who can play in one of the 8s and as a 6, perhaps alongside Trent when he goes in there, will be absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. Anyway, let's carry on. Here we go, next one. Okay, cool. Yeah, so you have. We've had a super chat off Robert Ferences. I'm so bad at pronouncing names. I do apologise. I really do. Ferenc? Anyway, super chat. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I appreciate the support. Yeah, do get involved with some comments as well, guys, because I'm still here for a few more minutes just yet. Somebody says that. It's Jevid again. Thank you very much. Kone looks like a genie replacement we've all been waiting for, and Thuram looks a lot more like a final third player. I think both would be ideal for us. Mac Allister is the gem at the 3. Yeah, I tend to agree with you on the final point. It's interesting on Thuram because I was just touching on it before the super chat came in. I think he is very much a player who can do it all in midfield. Like, he really is. And I actually, despite his physical prowess, like I say, 6'4", absolute man monster, and defensively, he has everything it takes, everything it requires. He does impact the game in the final third as well. And his ability on the ball, his technical attributes are actually superb. So he is very much a player that can do anything in the midfield. And I think having someone of that ilk, and I think he's still so young as well. I think he's still 22. I mean, he would be an absolute worldly of a signing for us, quite frankly. In terms of where they're all at right now and how they fit Liverpool, Mac Allister is the ideal option because we've already seen him in the Premier League. He's a little bit older. He's more of the finished article. But if you can back that up with a Thuram or a Kone or a Gravenberch or a Gabby Vega, we are well on the way to getting ourselves a nice shiny new midfield. Okay, Aaron, our producer, has just told me that PSG, this isn't Liverpool related necessarily, by the way, but PSG are on the verge of signing Manuel Ugarte. I know Chelsea were keen on him. And it's LFC related in as much as we were tentatively linked with him earlier on this summer. I did a couple of shows about him. Doesn't look like anything's going to materialise from that, obviously, from Liverpool perspective. But what it does do is it kind of bolsters the Thuram links a little bit as well, because I've seen a lot of reports over the weekend saying PSG are keen on Thuram. But if they then go and sign Manuel Ugarte, another, I think he's nicknamed the combat vehicle, another sort of all-action, big, powerful, strong midfielder, they might not need Thuram. They might not go and get him. And I know we'll all sit there and say, well, Liverpool should have more of a lure than PSG anyway. But we're talking about a French kid who could potentially go and play for the French champions. Like, there would have been the traction there, plus the money side of things as well, of course. So I think PSG, looking like they're going to sign Ugarte, according to Fabrizio Romano, is actually another plus point for Liverpool in terms of our potential Thuram deal. I want to finish off. I want to come back around to Mac Allister, of course. Nivajan Shrisa says, is he the right signing for us? Again, I presume we're talking about Mac Allister. I think so. Absolutely, I think so. I see no reason why not. I think he ticks dozens of boxes that Jurgen Klopp would have been looking for this summer. I've already gone over some of them. I think he's the right age profile. He has a decent amount of Premier League experience behind him. He's off the back of a really impressive Premier League campaign. Of course, he won the World Cup, so big stages don't necessarily scare him. I think that's fair to say. I think he's technically good enough to come play in this Liverpool side. He has the eye for a pass in the final third that I don't want to say we've been missing from our midfield, because the likes of Thiago definitely have that capability, and Trent going in there only adds to that as well. But our midfield hasn't been awash with numbers in recent years, in terms of we haven't had loads of goals or assists from there. They've generally come from your fullbacks, Robertson and Trent on either side, of course, and then your forwards. Now, that's obviously worked for a large period of time, but against certain oppositions who essentially sit really deep. Like, we had so much problems breaking down a low block for years, even under Jurgen Klopp, even under our glory days. When teams come to Anfield and sit really deep, we did struggle. But having somebody with the creative eye that Alexis Mac Allister has got, I would hasten to suggest that he is very much the right option. Because as brilliant as I'll say this about him, and I say the same for Harvey Elliott on the other side as well, actually. Both brilliantly talented footballers who both have a very bright future, probably at Liverpool Football Club. But I think for where we're at right now, we just need them, but a few more years advanced. And I think Mac Allister is that instead of Curtis Jones. I really do. I think he offers absolutely everything. So yeah, I'm more for it, as you can see. Robert is back again. Thank you very much for this. I always need to close that down. There we go. Thank you very much again, Robert, for the super chat. What do you think about the Szollosby? Oh, you've done it the other way around. That's confused me. Not only is that an impossible surname to pronounce, you've done it surname first. Dominic from Leipzig. He has had a great season, and I think could be an important piece in this team. Yeah, listen, brilliant footballer, quite frankly, wonderful footballer. One who I would love to see come to Liverpool. In terms of the model, it would make a lot of sense for us to go and sign a Leipzig player. It really would. I've seen a lot of reports about him, generally speaking, in terms of potentially being on the move. I think Leipzig would be very keen to keep hold of him, much as they would for Josko Gvardiol as well, of course, another player who I'd love to see at Liverpool. But listen, if there's a deal to be done there, I'd be absolutely made up. Absolutely made up. I'm just going to bring this comment up, and I'm not going to read that name out. I'm not going to read it out. Nearly. Like Clarence Worley, I appreciate the effort. Now, if I wasn't as clued up, I'm just going to double check everything first. Don't bring the screen up for 1 second, Aaron. But I'm just going to double check that I'm right here. And I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yeah, I'm right. That's good. That's nice to know. He's actually a movie director, that fella. And I don't think we'll be signing the movie director anytime soon. Don't get me wrong, we're going to need someone to do the fancy Alexis Mac Allister announcement video over the next 48 hours, it looks like. But I don't think they're going to hire Jack, the movie director. But good try. Good. If I wasn't as clued up on me lower league football, and I say lower league, it's the Championship, under the Premier League football, you might have got a lesser man or woman might have fell for that. But thankfully not me. Good effort though, I appreciate it. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to do 5 more minutes with you. 5 more minutes with you, then I'm going to leave you to it. More people asking, Eric Seven Haag, which is a name I can get behind. Again, asking how much Alexis was. We don't quite know yet. Way less than £60 million, according to our man Fabrizio Romano. Lee Caller says, I dare you to pronounce Sholabai. I always just call him Sholabai. I mean, again, I've already said my pronunciation of surnames is horrendous. Sholasby? I don't think that's a million miles away. I'll learn to pronounce it when we sign him. Sign him, Liverpool, and then I'll learn it. There's a deal for you. Anyway, brought another one up there. There we go. Kandersan 999 Tube says 45 to 50 mil. Yeah, that feels very much like in the ballpark of what this deal is going to be. And if it is, sign me up, quite frankly. I want to bring this super chat up as well before we move on. Ariane Guglani, super chat $2. Thank you very much. Wish we could sign Jules Koundé. I'm a big fan of him. Doesn't say Jules, but it just says Koundé. But yeah, I know. Yeah, big fan of his as well. Would make a lot of sense what we're trying to do. There was obvious quite a lot of links to Jurrien Timber earlier on this window. Another centre-back would make a lot of sense for us. I think Koundé was as well. He fits the bill in terms of he's played at full-back a little bit too. And Barcelona, who knows what levers they'll be pulling this winter. I've seen before I came on air, they are desperately trying to get Lionel Messi back. Of course they are. They might have to have a bit of a fire sale themselves. And if Koundé falls into that category, we know the De Jong saga went on forever last summer. There was even reports about Rafinha leaving them just months after he joined them. So listen, if Koundé falls into the category of Barcelona needing to sell and Liverpool were there, I'm all for that as well, quite frankly. I've got no issue with that. Cheers, Mr. J Mango. Yeah, I know. Good job, though, innit? Could have had a nightmare there. Could have had an absolute nightmare. Spirit saying he would have fell for it. Thankfully, yeah, if you were sat here, Spirit, we'd have been in all kinds of trouble. All kinds of trouble. Mark Cox says, any truth in the Gabby Vega rumours, guys? Not quite sure. There's a good chance I'll be speaking to the man who gave us those rumours this week. I have spoken to him this morning briefly. I'm going to get a bit more information on that, quite frankly, before I'd say too much. But he is certainly of the opinion Liverpool, I think it was have taken the lead in the race. I think Manchester City, Manchester United and Chelsea were all keen as well. But yeah, Liverpool are reportedly leading the way for Gabby Vega, having signed Alexis Mac Allister. Oh, I mean, I shouldn't really bring that comment up, but thanks, Spirit. Thanks. That's very sycophantic of me to bring that up. So I probably shouldn't have done, but thanks. Like, I hope no one else sees it, but thanks. Speaking of hilarious names that people try and trick people with, Toby Liverpool. And speaking of movies, how weird is that? That's really odd. I didn't even read that comment before I said it. That's strange. Toby Liverpool, again, boss name. Love it. Speaking of movie directors, I'm sure Redmond TV have produced some brilliant content airing on the 23rd of June. Who told you that was a thing? No, I'm joking. Yeah, we have. It's Boss. It's Bobby Firmino, best in the world. It's going to be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Like, I've seen certain bits of it. I've seen little clips, obviously. I've been involved in a lot of the filming myself. Went over to Hoffenheim to speak to some brilliant people. It's just going to be amazing. So if you're not already, make sure you get involved with Redmen Plus, because 23rd of June, that's going to be a bit special. I will start to wrap up because I'm aware I'm just going through different links now and just talking about them. I came on here to speak exclusively about Mac Allister, but let's be honest, that was never going to happen. O'Neill Padilla says, any chance of getting Mickey van der Ven? He's a Wolfsburg footballer, obviously, Jörg Schmadtke's former haunt. Doesn't feel like Jörg Schmadtke had to do a lot of digging to find him, given that he worked with him for months on end recently until January. Possibly another centre-back, and I've already said we need to get a centre-back in. I wouldn't be surprised if we do go and sign one, if he is particularly young, and obviously Van der Ven fits that bill. I don't think we necessarily need a ready-made one. I think Konate and Van Dijk are already made ones. We just need the lads underneath that, i.e. Joe Gomez, possibly Joel Matip, possibly one more, to be more readily available and It might be a left-sided one to do the Andy Robertson role. There's a really interesting dilemma there. Or it might be the right-sided one to sort of cover for Canate when he isn't around, because his role becomes so much harder with Trent going into midfield. That's a whole different conversation for a whole different day. I'm not going to go too much into detail on that one. One more comment I want to bring up here, and I will bring it completely back around to Mac Allister before I wrap up. Thuram, Kone and Timber and get Pulisic on a very cheap as last year in Chelsea out of favour as well as Mac Allister. That Pulisic ship has sailed. That's really hard to say. Pulisic ship has sailed. Try that again. That's gone. That. And we were linked with him, obviously, while he was at Dortmund. There's obviously Klopp links there. Americans seem to make sense for our owners because, it just does. And he goes to Chelsea. His injury record is abysmal. We don't need any more attackers. Not for me, Clive. Thank you very much for the comment. Anyway, Emily Roberts. Listen, I get it. I actually like Pulisic as a player. But like I say, he seems to get injured every time he plays football to me. And for somebody who would cost a decent amount in wages, I agree with you in terms of being out of favour. Last year in his deal, he's still going to demand a certain wage bracket. And I just don't think we should be sort of putting any of our money aside for him. Just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for where we're at. I think three midfielders, starting with Mac Allister and the defender, are much more pressing right now. I would say, somebody else mentions here, Breo Mai says, what about Gravenberch and Timber? It actually says Timbers, which reminds me very much of, why can't I think of the name of somebody who cuts down trees? I want to say woodchuck, but it's not. Anyway, it's gone. Somebody tell me what a fella is. Lumberjack. Come to me anyway. Come to me head anyway. I'm just talking nonsense now. Alexis Mac Allister. These often sort of plunge to me talking absolute rubbish. Dan, way best. You say that. That's really bad timing. Thanks, Stephen Cowley. But I've just been trying to remember what a lumberjack's called. But I do appreciate that. I do try and talk about football mainly. I don't know what the other guys talk about. I feel like I should know, but I don't. Last couple of comments before I back up and I'll give you my final thoughts. Dino Bryan says, a ginger Irish Argentinian suits Liverpool well. Yeah, can't argue with that, quite frankly. We haven't had loads of success with Argentinian footballers in the past. Sebastian Leto, I don't think anyone would call a roaring success. Maxi Rodriguez, definitely a success. Emiliano Insua, fine, quite liked him as a footballer. I'd like Alexis Mac Allister's Liverpool career to supersede all of them, if possible. That'd be amazing. That'd be absolutely amazing. South Americans, different conversation. On the other hand, we've just seen Bobby Firmino leave. Obviously, Luis Suarez wasn't bad, was he? If Mac Allister could get closer to them two than the first two I mentioned, I'll be all for it. All for it. Anyway, Emily Roberts comes back. Thuram is somebody who should go flat out for, and Timber after getting Mac Allister. Yeah, I have no qualms whatsoever about that. No issue with that whatsoever. I think Thuram seems to make a lot of sense to me. And again, with Joyce mentioning Thuram this morning in his article, it has filled me with slightly more confidence that Liverpool definitely are in the race for him. I mean, if L'Équipe reports from France, it doesn't get more reliable than that from France, quite frankly. If they weren't enough to suggest that Liverpool were admirers of Kefren Thuram, then Paul Joyce saying it as well is all the confirmation that I needed, certainly. Last couple of comments now before I do wrap it up. I'm just going to flick through some stuff before I tell you all the details that you need to know about Alexis Mac Allister. Mascherano, how could I forget? How could I? Freedom Journey, thank you very much. Yet again, I'd put him in the second bracket of South American players. I'd have Max Rodriguez in the middle of the Venn diagram as being a sound and also very good South American footballer. Mascherano, the best Argentinian. But saying that his Liverpool career wasn't fantastic. It was good, but it wasn't fantastic. It was his Barcelona career afterwards whereby he really became a world star. Fine for us, but not unbeatable like he became. So yeah, I think he's definitely in the better bracket with Suarez and Bobby Firmino. But yeah, again, I think if Mac Allister can have a much better career than Javier Mascherano have for Liverpool, he would be the best Argentinian we've ever had, quite frankly. So yeah, anyway, just got to make sure I haven't missed anything pressing and really important, because I hate to do that. How can Mascherano be forgotten? Yeah, crazy eyes killer. Yeah, you're right. I'll go upstairs and have a word with myself after that, mate. Don't worry, because you're absolutely right. I am fully ashamed. How can I remember Emiliano Insua, Sebastian Leto, and forget Javier Mascherano? What's going on? Anyway, Yeah, I haven't mentioned every single South American's played for the team, putting Alison in the chat now. Like, I'm aware somebody else says TRS Joanne says Max is a cult hero. Absolutely agree with that. Boss song. Max Rodriguez run down the wing for you. I'm not surprised that like people have mentioned South Americans, but I'm also not going to mention everyone's ever played for us, because the minute I say Diego Cavalieri, then we're into a whole different conversation of people. Yeah. Anyway, let's do it. Alexis Mac Allister. I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to go back through the tweets really quickly. Fabrizio Romano has said, here we go, full agreement completed on the contract. He understands it will be valid until June 2028, 5-year deal. Liverpool will pay the buyout clause in the next days, way less than the reported 60 million fee for Fabrizio Romano. And he also says a medical test will be in the next 24 to 48 hours. Done. Doesn't get more final than that, does it? That's more final than actually seeing him at the AXA, let's be honest. And Fabrizio Romano says, after the Alexis Mac Allister deal, once the medical's all completed, Liverpool will focus on the more targets to rebuild the midfield. Conversations have taken place with agents of Manu Kone, Kefren Saran, and Gabri Veiga is appreciated, but there's no bid or talks advancing just yet. So, to finalise from me, Liverpool are very busy in the summer market. We will be very busy here, of course, as always, at Redmen, making sure we've got every single angle covered on this deal. I'm going to go away in just a second to try and find out some more about Alexis Mac Allister and exactly what's going on there. But in my place, we will have Steve Hoare and Chloe Bloxham. They will be over on Redmen Plus, bringing you a Redmen Reacts to the news that Alexis Mac Allister is that close to becoming a Liverpool player. And finally, for me, that is a deal I'm very happy with, because I think he's a brilliant talented footballer, had an incredible season in the Premier League just gone, seems to be getting better and better all the time, as I said a little bit earlier, under a manager such as Jurgen Klopp, with better players around him. No disrespect to Brighton, because let's be honest, they were miles better than we were at times this season. Certainly at the Amex, they were far better than we were there. But with Jurgen Klopp, with world-class footballers around him, such as Mohamed Salah, Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, who knows what Alexis Mac Allister could go on to become. He's already a World Cup winner, and the sky seems to be the limit. So I'm very happy. Hopefully you're very happy too. As I mentioned, Steve and Chloe will be over on Redmen Plus not long after this show finishes. Get over there now. I've already spoken to Roy Nemeth, Argentinian football expert, about Alexis Mac Allister. So if you're already a Redmen Plus subscriber, make sure you check that out. If you're not, go over there and do it now. I will have lots more conversations coming your way about the Argentinian. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for getting involved. Nice try catching me out. Better luck next time. Until next time, I will see you soon.
Everyone, hope you enjoyed that show. Do you want to get your hands on some amazing Liverpool merchandise? Well, if you become a Redmen Plus Club legend on a yearly subscription, we'll instantly send you 2 merch codes to get you 2 pieces of merchandise from redmenmerch.com. T-shirts are amazing. Go and get yourselves one. Simply become a Redmen Plus Club legend on a yearly subscription, and that code will be in your inbox very, very shortly.